Good morning. It is definitely time for some morning motivation. And this week, I am thinking about the fact that sometimes you reap what you sow. And in this case, I mean literally. First of all, it is August in my neck of the woods in Philadelphia, and my little urban garden is doing beautifully. This is the time when we are having abundance of, peppers and tomatoes and cucumbers like crazy. And during this time, I think about the work that took place before we got to this point. And that work was about making decisions. What are we going to put in here? What are we going to put into the soil? How do we prepare the soil? How do we take care of it? How do we take care of the seeds or the small plants that we add early in the spring? How do you protect them from inclement weather, whether it's too hot, too cold, or rainy? And a garden is all about choices. When you think about the full potential of a garden, you think about not only the choices that you make, but why those choices are so incredibly important to the outcome. Let me give you a couple of examples. Sometimes in a garden, you'll find fruit or vegetables that are not forming correctly. Maybe they've got a fungus on them. Maybe they are they've been eaten a little. Maybe they just did not grow correctly. And it's important to take those off the vine as soon as possible because you don't want the energy of the plant going towards keeping something that's not going to produce a great result. Sometimes you leave some things on the vine a little bit too long, like a cucumber that becomes so giant that unfortunately it doesn't have good flavor anymore. The skin gets a little too tough. The inside is not as delicious as it should be. Sometimes you look at things and say, they don't just look quite right. And it's that moment right before they're going to turn the right color or they're going to be completely ready to go and eat, like my bell peppers that are turning colors. Sometimes you're looking at things and saying, I can't believe they're not getting ripe fast enough. And I know that with so many of them, they're all going to come ripe at the same time. Then I'm going to have too many. I'm going to have an overabundance. How am I going to handle those? Sometimes you have a little friend along the way, those little helpers that maybe are just keeping quiet, like my little grasshopper. He's been with us all year long. I've watched him go from green to, a different color of kind of uh, I don't know, pale, something. But he hasn't eaten much, but he always hides in the chives. And he's just that little helper that I don't know what else he's doing, but I'm pretty glad that we have him. But regardless of what all these issues are, like I said, you have to make choices along the way. We have to decide, what are we going to have in our garden? Where are we going to place things in the garden? What are we going to do if things don't happen the way we'd like them to? Like this year, actually, we got some other bugs in my tomatoes and we lost many of our tomato plants very early. It's very disappointing. But there's choices that you make with all of those things. And when I realized this issue as I was going through the garden today, I was thinking about how much this correlates to what we do at work. Now, last week I was really particularly thinking about sales and new clients and new opportunities and what type of efforts you have to make to have consistent sales or consistent new clients. Or frankly, it might just be about the quality of your work. What does it take to be that committed to having quality work that gets better and better and better? Well, you might think that I'm going to make a correlation to the garden. And if you think that, you are correct. So today I was thinking about how much we can take the lessons from the garden and apply them in our business lives. So I'm going to give 4 points today that I think are really critical. And the first is plant the right seeds. Yes, it's so important. Now, depending on where you live, for instance, it literally is important because you want to grow things in an area where they are common to that place in the world. Because if you don't, sometimes they struggle to grow. Same thing in business. Plant the right seeds. Whether or not you are looking at sales, you're looking at improving your own professional background, you're building your company, the seeds that you plant are very important. They tell a story about you. And it also, the quality of that seed will determine whether or not it can grow and be fertile in the ground that you're trying to sow it in. So as you as you think about this process of, am I planting the right seeds? You might ask yourself some things like, am I saying the right things to clients? Am I producing the quality of work that's expected of me? And if not, how can I change it? And if so, how can I make sure that I keep doing it? It's not all about the fact that we might be doing something wrong. Sometimes it's about being so aware of what we're doing right that we remember that the consistency of that is also a part of the planting process. So the second point is water and fertilize. I mean, come on. We have it within the gardens without a doubt. But in our business lives, it's also really important. That element of watering, it's where that consistency is to keep the roots wet and moist in the ground. But it's also the number of touches that it might take with a client or a prospective client or a sale process, that the consistency of the watering is the consistency of your message. And sometimes to fertilize it, add a little bit more, add and more personal touch, an extra little message out of the blue. I have a very good friend who occasionally sends me notes. In fact, I keep forgetting to thank him for the last postcard that I got that just reminds me that I'm a unicorn. Those things are not watering, they're fertilizing. They are giving extra growth to something that is already in a good growth mode. So as we move into the third one, prune what is not necessary. I'm going through this process right now in a big way for my business. And pruning what is not necessary is about making sure we're making good decisions to cut things out that aren't benefiting the whole. So just as I showed you my poor little sad cucumber that was a little rotten at the top and very misshapen and not the right color, we had to prune it so that, again, the plant doesn't continue to send water and nutrients to something that's already dying on the vine. Pruning what is not necessary allows us to regain focus in a much more dedicated approach. So we're saying, hey, we can't do it all, but let's make sure that we're doing what's important. And my fourth step is don't leave things on the vine too long. Okay, yes, I know, I get it. That was totally my lesson with the giant cucumber. And it was pretty cool to look at, but it didn't taste good. And that's the same thing. If sometimes we're hesitant, especially in sales processes, to, maybe just wait until that person just falls into our lap, instead of realizing that at some point in time, you need to make the next step to make the sale happen or to help the fruit move from the vine to the table. And those steps are really important. How we tend to the garden of our business is just as important as the garden that puts food on our table. And actually, the garden of our businesses does the same thing. So the lessons are very vital with each. Now, this is motivating me this week, and for a lot of reasons. This is a time of year where I really start to think about the abundance, the great things that have happened in my life and that are happening. And many of you know that autumn is my favorite season of all. The reason being, it's new opportunity. We get to reap everything that we've sowed to this part in the year, and then we get to make new decisions as we end each year. I'm very cyclical in this calendar of my life. But the reason that it's so important to me is in the fall, I always think about new starts. In fact, that's our back to school theme for our September podcast, is back to school, where new fresh starts happen after we have reaped the abundance of what we've worked so hard for. So as we make this transition to the end of summer, right before the beginning of a new season, let's take time to really uphold our gardens personally, professionally, and with our businesses. And remember, if you like what we've been delivering here, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out our Shock Your Potential podcast. It's a great way to find out not only more about what we're doing, but many, many incredible lessons that will help water and fertilize your mind, your business, your opportunity. Thanks, everyone. And remember, it's always a good time to shock your potential.